Hello and welcome to the FPL News channel. This is a press conference roundup for Fantasy Premier League ahead of the Gameweek 13 deadline, which is 11 a.m. Ireland UK time on Saturday morning. So we'll start with Liverpool, who are in the early kickoff. Darwin Núñez has a hamstring issue. He got taken off on Wednesday after feeling it, I guess, and it's going to be assessed. He got treatment yesterday. That's Thursday. So it's going to depend on if he trains today or not. Training was after Klopp's press conference, so in fairness, he couldn't actually tell us that. And there's no training pictures as of yet, but there might be later on, perhaps. There might not too. It's not a definite. Personally, even before Klopp spoke, I wouldn't have expected Núñez to start just because of what happened in the proximity of games. Klopp also referenced the short turnaround that Liverpool have, so Wednesday night to the early kickoff Saturday is obviously the worst turnaround time you could have. And Klopp's been very vocal in the past about how he dislikes that and thinks it's not good for the players, which is almost definitely true. Every club probably gets stuck with it at some stage, but yeah, it's not ideal. And he's been fairly loud about that in the past. So, and I think Núñez is he's definitely a doubt, and I'd be very surprised if he started. Could easily make the bench, in fairness, depending on the level of problem. If he doesn't train today, I'd say he wouldn't even make the bench, but whether we'll find that out or not is another matter. And Klopp also said that he was kind of including Núñez in this, but that some players have knocks. After Wednesday night, he didn't say who else was included in that category, but yeah, rotation is going to happen. I think I mentioned in the video midweek that the midweek games would probably throw up a lot of rotation. In the end, they didn't particularly in FPL terms. I mean, Graham Potter is rotating like crazy, but for fantasy, I guess it didn't make a huge difference unless you'd free hit in Aubameyang or Sterling or someone like that. But yeah, I think we all knew that Chelsea is very dangerous place to go. But yeah, overall the rotation I don't think was too bad. But basically every manager today has said that the turnaround time and the gap between games and just the recovery time isn't good. And that means that there's going to be some probably more surprises in lineups this weekend, perhaps, than there was in midweek. Again, it's obviously very specific if it actually makes a difference to fantasy or not, but there is going to be a lot of changes this weekend, and it's possible that a lot of managers, which they do sometimes anyway, which is obviously really annoying, they hold back information or they don't reveal certain things like Moyes with Paqueta and stuff like that, but it happens more so when the games are so close together, because it's just a get out clause that they can say, oh, we have some issues, but like Klopp, to go back to Liverpool, who we started on, Klopp kind of said he's going to leave it till the last minute to make his decisions. Presumably that'll still be tonight, but it's obviously after the press conference. So that's just my wee rant on rotation and Premier League managers. The rest of Liverpool news is that Matip might not be back until after the World Cup for Liverpool, so the next 4 game weeks or whatever. So he's a doubt for all those games, doubt to return. But Kanate is going to be back in full training on Monday, so he should be available from game week 14 on, all going well from training. And yeah, that's everything that we know from Liverpool at the moment. The other thing to note with Liverpool is that they are the early kickoff, as mentioned, so there's the possibility of lineup leaks before the FPL deadline at 11. Just a word of caution, be extremely careful who you trust on the lineup leaks, because there could be several. Not all of them are going to be right. None of them might be right, and probably the best ones are where people say in the tweet as a disclaimer, this might not be right, as opposed to someone just tweeting out the XI or whatever. I know Andy, Let's Talk FPL, had leaks on Wednesday. Obviously, it was post deadline, but he was obviously told correctly that certain players were starting, so it might be a good idea to keep an eye on his Twitter. And then, other than that, just be extremely careful as to what you believe. Make sure it's not like FPL Boona or someone like that taking the mickey, which is very possible. But yeah, you might, if you're on wildcard particularly, or you're wondering about which Liverpool players to select, it's probably a good idea to wait till as late as you can. Half an hour before the deadline, 20 minutes before, 15 minutes before. I suppose you'd want to be deciding by then. All right, I guess it'd be good to have, if your wildcard is based around potentially getting someone like Nunez or Trent or Salah, or whoever else that you might be thinking about buying from Liverpool, it could be an idea to have drafts ready, and then depending on if we get a proper leak, or a leak that we can trust, I suppose, rather than a proper leak. Yeah, trustworthy leak. Might help you to make your decisions. Obviously, that's very dependent on each person, whether they can actually get online and all that kind of thing pre-deadline, but that's the situation with Liverpool. Okay, we'll move on to Arsenal. Saka should be fine. Picked up a knock against PSV. Arteta said last night that he got a kick and that he was limping, and said hopefully he'll be fine. And today again he said he should be fine. So yeah, I would expect Saka to start on Sunday. Martinelli was ill during the week, but he had recovered enough to make the squad last night and was brought on as a sub, so probably no worries there either. Zinchenko was close according to Arteta, but he didn't give much up as usual. He went on to speak about their depth at left back, which now includes Tomiyasu. So Zinchenko mightn't be a certain starter anymore, even when he is back, depending on, Arteta said he's going to basically pick it game by game. He picked Tomiyasu to play against Salah and that kind of thing. Obviously Tomiyasu is only like 4.2 in FPL, which would be absolutely incredible value if he was a guaranteed starter. But hard to say that he is at the moment, but he's one worth monitoring for sure. I suppose there's not many weeks left now, but if you're on wildcard, I wouldn't be against throwing him in. I suppose it's kind of using up an Arsenal spot that you probably want to use elsewhere, so maybe not, but all depends on your budget and your other plans and which premiums you're getting and stuff like that. He is an amazing price. And Tierney started last night, so I would expect Tomiyasu to start at the weekend. Whether or not that exact rotation will keep happening Europa League to league, and obviously Zinchenko in the mix, very hard to say. I do think Tomiyasu will start this weekend, but after that it's extremely hard to say. So yeah, I suppose there's probably better uses for your third Arsenal slot. Perhaps he's more one to look at when we have unlimited transfers going to Gameweek 17, and hopefully we'll know lots about player availability at that time. That'll be interesting. The last thing from Arsenal was that Arteta said there'll be rotation, but not wholesale changes. I mean, the Europa League is allowing him to do that, make the changes that he needs to make on a Thursday night, and then essentially play his best 11 every single weekend. I don't expect him to really change that much. It's probably, like he says, maybe one or two, but I mean, once they're fit, it's very hard to see how he doesn't play 10 of the same 11 in the Premier League for the next 4 games. It just they have the perfect opportunity. They already have Europa League qualifications sewn up, and he was rotating in it anyway. So it's ideal for Arsenal in that sense, and I suppose it's good from FPL because once they're available, those players that we want, being Martinelli, Saka, Jesus, Saliba, or maybe Gabriel or Ramsdale, depending on who you have, they're all going to play every week. I suppose there's the risk of subs later in games when they do have games every 3 or 4 days, but that's nothing new, and it happens at every club. So there's one other thing I want to say about Arsenal, but it's very hard to remember right now. Jesus is on 4 yellows. That's the one. So yeah, it could be a bit of a old school Diego Costa vibes where he was on 4 yellows and we all avoided him. I think it was probably that 14-15 season when Chelsea won the league, I think. And he just kept scoring and kept not getting booked. It was unbelievable. I suppose it's a bit different this time because of the split in the season. It's not like we're saying avoid Jesus for 8 game weeks, which at the time I think it would cost us something like that. He went about 8 game weeks and he almost scored every game and just didn't get booked. It was unbelievable for a player like him. But yeah, I suppose I'd be wary of Jesus because there's only 4 weeks left. He gets the yellow, he's missing one of those weeks already. But at the same time, the lesson from Costa is that the yellow might not happen, but the goals probably will. So I wouldn't put anyone off Jesus either, to be fair. I know a lot of people are buying Saka this week and probably going the midfield way with it. But yeah, Jesus is obviously still a really good pick. Just to note on his possible but not definite suspension before game week 16. Okay, Man City. John Stones is training the last 2 days and will be in the squad. Phillips and Walker are still out. Man City, the only club out of the 20 that didn't have a game midweek. And all the faces you want to see were in training yesterday, or at least a training video yesterday of training during the week. So yeah, unless something happened today, all the kind of top FPL picks are gonna start tomorrow. And yeah, I suppose Haaland is the easy captain choice, the obvious choice in fairness. And yeah, all should be well with City in FPL terms. So Spurs, Conte's worried that Kulusevski might not be back before the World Cup. Just going to turn on the light. Solid YouTubing here. Yeah, Kulusevski might not be back before the World Cup. Charleston's still out. Lucas Moore's not ready to start. Conte mentioned that the wing back role saps a lot of energy, so between losing it in midweek and the fact that Doherty and Perisic have started the last 2 games, be no surprise to see Session on the left and Emerson Royal is back from suspension on the right. And yeah, the same as Klopp and basically all the other managers. Conte is referencing the schedule, how close the games are together in relation to a selection, and Spurs obviously play Sunday, so any team playing Sunday will train tomorrow, most likely. I suppose it depends on travel and stuff like that as well. Well, yeah, I suppose the home teams on Sunday will definitely train tomorrow. The away teams may or may not, depending on their travel plans, but they probably do something anyway. So, yeah, between that and the fact that they only just played a game, I suppose they probably actually don't have selection decisions made. So yeah, there's going to be some rotation Spurs, but nothing too unexpected. I'd imagine you'd think Kane and Son are just going to play away. especially when their options up front are obviously pretty limited at the moment, with Kulusevski and Richarlison sidelined. So on to Chelsea, same again. Potter's going to assess the squad, but he didn't report any new injuries from midweek. And Gallagher trained today, so he could be back available after having to come off because he was ill. For Fulham, who played last night, Silva said the players look good, but that they must assess them. And like, his press conference was on before he'd even seen the players today. So yeah, I'm a Mitrovic owner. I know a lot of people are. Yeah, I'd expect him to play again. He's obviously playing a bit through the pain barrier and stuff like that, but I'd be surprised if he didn't play, unless it's somehow now worse. But there's honestly no way of us knowing that, before deadline or anything like that. It's just not going to happen. Maybe there'll be a training video, but again, wouldn't hang my hat on that now. It's 25 to 7 in the evening at the moment. Yeah, it's unlikely. But yeah, I'd imagine Mitrovic will be fine. And obviously a good game against Leeds, so like, even if you were on wildcard, I'd certainly be considering him. I mean, a lot depends on your formation, and I suppose Tony and some other strikers have good fixtures too. So I suppose he's not a wildcard lock or anything like that, but he's definitely worth considering. And yeah, for owners, I mean, it's fairly simple to just keep him. If he happens not to turn up because it's got way worse or anything like that, you can kind of go from there. I'm sure everyone, you're probably going to have Andreas coming in from, if that did happen anyway, and Andreas extremely likely to play. So, but yeah, I wouldn't worry about Mitrovic. And after the weekend, they'll have a full week to the next game, or I suppose 6 days or whatever. So you'd imagine once he gets through the weekend, his playing time prospects should be good. They've only got one game every week, up to the World Cup. So for West Ham, Paqueta has a shoulder injury. Moyes said it's actually not as bad as they feared. Last night didn't sound good. Wednesday night. They sounded worried about it, and now they're less worried about it, but he's not going to play this game week. But I guess he could turn up again before the World Cup. Moyes also said Dawson could return, so they're not playing till Monday as well. So they have a lot of time to get people in shape or whatever, like, if they're close. And Maxwell Cornet remains a doubt. And Moyes talked about rotation like all the other managers. They do have that extra day and stuff like that, so I'm sure that'll be helpful. And I don't doubt he'll still play most of his, key players or whatever like that. But there's going to be some little bit of rotation in West Ham. But it's par for the course this weekend. On to Newcastle. Joelinton is out with a new injury. It is a new injury. It's a knee injury as well. He picked it up there midweek. So he's out. They don't know how serious it is. So proximity to the World Cup means that he mightn't be seen until after that as well. If it's worse than they think, I guess Howe should know soon. He might already know. But yeah, that is Joelinton. Maximum is working with the physios, so it doesn't sound like he's anywhere close to return. And when Howe was asked about this weekend, he said that injuries can take time to come to the fore, which is just an annoying way of saying that there might be issues, but even if he knew, he wouldn't tell you what they were. But yeah, it's the same shtick as all the other managers. Things either have popped up in the last day that they haven't told us about, or things can pop up before their game kicks off, and that'll be, something that we find out post deadline. But I mean, Newcastle away to Spurs. Us Trippier owners are obviously starting him. The guy's a bonus point magnet or whatever. I mean, I wouldn't hate playing Wilson or anyone like that either, and it doesn't sound like any of those kind of FPL assets are going to be in trouble, but it's all is possible, especially in these 3-game weeks. From Man United, Martial is on the grass, but he remains unavailable, so I take it that means he's working with the physio / training alone. Maguire, Williams, Wan-Bissaka are all back in training, but it's only this week, so their availability is unclear, and Ronaldo's out of the squad for this weekend over disciplinary issues. So for Southampton, Walker Peters is out long-term with a hamstring injury, another fairly big blow for the Saints, and Bella is still out. Lavia returned to training, but he's not going to be rushed. He only returned this week, and he's obviously been out for 6 or 7 weeks or something like that. So, he's not going to feature this weekend realistically. And Maitland-Niles is ineligible. Everton Patterson's back in training, could be available next week. So not this weekend, but next week. Going into Gameweek 14. Godfrey's unlikely to return to action for the World Cup. Mina's still out. And I think Frank Lampard just said we'll see on whether Calvert-Lewin would start again or not. Seeing as I said I'd be surprised if he started midweek, I'd be doubly surprised if he started another game within the time frame. I don't know, unless they maybe he starts and comes off at halftime or something like that. But I think they'd be taking, even from what Lampard has said and from his injury history, they'd be taking a massive risk if they started him again so soon. Obviously, they're in a bit of bother and they need goals and points and all that kind of thing. But yeah, I think that would be a very risky decision. But yeah, FPL terms, Everton, I guess Patterson will be an option again from next week, but a lot of people are going to have their wildcards used, and I guess budget defenders are not really where you're going to be trying to focus your last 3 free transfers or 4 free transfers, before the break. For Crystal Palace, no injury worries, and Edouard was praised by Vieira, so looks like he's locked up that starting spot as a centre forward for Palace. For anyone looking for a fairly budget forward, Edouard seemed like a decent bet if you're shopping in that price bracket. For Brighton, they have 2 or 3 players with fatigue-related issues. But De Zerbi didn't say who. I think he said he knows what his 11 is, but obviously he's not going to tell the press the 11 or whatever. It's fair. But he didn't say who the players that are struggling are. So in the dark on that one, unfortunately. A bit like this room before it turns light on. It's still very dark, actually. Yeah, Brighton. Who knows? Could be anyone. They're away to Man City, so pretty easy to bench any Brighton players that you have, I think. Maybe you want to start Trossard, I guess, because he could score against anyone. And the other thing that De Zerbi has talked about is that he's not going to change his game plan for Man City. He's obviously a front foot manager, as they say. He wants his team to get the ball down and play. I tweeted quotes from him during the week. It was post Nottingham Forest, and yeah, he kind of said that they'd be sticking to his philosophy. They wouldn't be changing for Man City. So he said the same thing today. He's kind of reiterating his desire to attack. He did say we want to play a good game without the ball, but then he said we want the ball. We want to attack, all that kind of thing. So it seemed like it should be a great game for Man City attackers. It'd be very FPL if it ended up being 1-0 to City with a Rodrigo goal or whatever after all that, but it looks primed for Haaland, Foden, De Bruyne, Cancelo, whoever. Maybe the clean sheet is a little bit more doubt because obviously Brighton are damn good themselves, and we saw, obviously Liverpool are high end, but what they could do to City when there's a bit of space there, and it sounds awfully like Brighton are going to attempt to do something similar in terms of getting at City's backline, as it were. But it seems like a fixture where attacking returns should be on the cards for those City players at least. For Brentford, no new injury concerns. Norgard remains out, and Janssen and Hickey were already ruled out until after the World Cup. That was recently. For Leeds, Marsh spoke last night after the defeat, so it was obviously all about losing and pressure and all that kind of thing. He's hopeful that Strauch will return, and he kind of said that they have a very, very fit and available squad, so it didn't seem like they had any new injury issues. But obviously the proximity of last night's games particularly makes it very hard for any sort of team news to filter down. For Leicester, same story, obviously, played Leeds last night. Evans remains a doubt, and Albrighton should be back from illness for the weekend. Wolves, they've no new injury concerns. Aït-Nouri is back after illness. And Davis, who's now going to be in charge till the end of this calendar year at least, referenced the importance of Adama Traore, who's obviously getting good minutes now under Davis. And he just said he's pivotal to the team, so expect Adama Traore to start. He may not play 90 because he's coming back from an injury, but they seem to be sort of intent on using him as part of their attacking options. For Villa, Gerrard obviously got sacked last night, so there's no team news whatsoever. First team coach is taking the game at the weekend, but not a shred of team news. Don't think Villa players are the ones you want in FPL anyway, and obviously they're not well selected. That was all of Fridays. From Thursday we have Forest. Harry Toffolo is out. Did not get an update on Renan Lodi. He's thought to be close enough to return, but Cooper doesn't give much up. So he said nothing on him. Might not have been asked about it either. If Lodi's not back, you can expect Neco Williams to probably play again on the left side of defence. O'Brien is struggling with illness, and as he said during the week, Cooper was saying again that Aurier and Mangal are players that aren't fit for 90 minutes because they're coming back from injuries. Even if you have Neco Williams, you want to be storing him way down third spot on that bench for the Liverpool game. But I guess we'll find out this weekend what the actual story with Lodi is, if he's in the squad or not, and that'll tell us a lot about Williams' expected minutes from 14 to 16 if we are in need. And Bournemouth finally, no fresh injury worries, and Lloyd Kelly may not return before the World Cup. And that is everything. All 20 clubs covered. I will link my threads from Thursday and Friday below if you want to read the full quotes in full. If you got to the end of the video, let me know if it's been of any use, if you'd like to see it continue. And I'll catch you next time. Cheers.